There are places out there you can't find on any map. They're not gone. They're just lost.
Congratulations on Uncharted. You brought Nathan Drake to the big screen. I saw that the game director also loved your casting, which is like,
Brilliant.
I mean, greatest thing to read, right? Was there a scene or level from the Uncharted games that impressed or inspired you?
Well, I mean, there's so many throughout all 4 games. You know, obviously in the film, we have a sequence where Nathan is sort of thrown out the back of an airplane and he is trying to clamber his way up back. We called it the daisy chain when we were shooting it. He's trying to climb his way back through these boxes to obviously get back into the plane to safety. That is a sequence that is heavily influenced from the games. You know, something that we went through all of the games and picked different things that we thought were achievable. There are sequences in the games that I just don't think we could pull off. They're that impressive. But, you know, we definitely did take influence from the games.
I mean, but you pulled that one off, which is just like mind blown. Was that the hardest thing you've ever done? Like, how did you train and how did you shoot that scene of you jumping over crates above the cargo plane?
I mean, it was incredibly tough. And, you know, I had to train a lot and I got as strong as I've ever been. But the interesting thing is, I basically wanted to put on as much size as possible, you know, because next to Mark Wahlberg, I looked like a rake. So I wanted to just get into shape and put on as much weight as possible. But in doing that, you know, I didn't do any cardiovascular work because I didn't want to burn any unnecessary calories in the gym. Meaning that when we were shooting these long sequences, I was so unfit. Like, you'd ask me to run a mile and I would have collapsed. So it was tough. It was a sort of double-edged sword of like, I could do pull-ups for days, but if you asked me to run a mile, I'd fall apart.
Oh my God. And what was it like shooting it? Like, did you come out unscathed? Because it just looks so physically intense.
I mean, there were times where, you know, we ripped our hands to smithereens, you know, like hanging onto those boxes, and eventually your grip strength would give out and you would just let go. And upon letting go, you'd have rope burn and blisters and bangs and bruises, you know. Unfortunately, I kicked a poor stuntman in the face in that sequence. He was okay. He is an ex-UFC fighter, so he's tough as nails. That doesn't excuse my lack of judgment, but just the way the wire work had worked out, I was closer to him than usual, and I booted him in the face. But he was okay, which was good to know. So there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into that sequence.
One stuntman was harmed in the making. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, he was, bless him. Greg had a really nasty one, actually. Greg at one point had to go through a wall, and they call it scoring the wall. And what that essentially means is they cut it into many pieces and then they put it back together. So when the stuntmen go through it, it kind of shatters, but they forgot to score one piece and it went into Greg's leg and he had the fattest bruise on the back of his leg. But he loves it. He was pulling his trousers down, showing everyone. He loves that sort of stuff.
He's got a battle wound now, Uncharted battle wound. That's so cool. Thanks for telling me about scoring. I didn't know that. I laughed so hard when you said you were like a rake next to Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
It was so fun seeing you guys share the screen together. And I was thinking, Tom, like you've had some pretty cool mentors on screen.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the pros and cons of having Tony Stark and Sully as a mentor.
I mean, they are interesting people, to say the least. You know, there are parts of both of those characters that are incredibly admirable and people that are easy to look up to, but that doesn't mean that they're not incredibly flawed. The whole crux of Spider-Man Far From Home is that he gave a sort of multi-billion-pound weaponized pair of sunglasses to a 17-year-old. I don't think that was the best idea, but it did make for a pretty great film. And then Sully, obviously, is the most distrusting person, an untrustworthy person in the world. Obviously, as the film progresses, there is an arc to his character. But, you know, there are pros and cons to both of them.
What are some pros to having them as your mentors?
I mean, they're both very kind. They're adventurous. You know, they are very handy in a fight. You know, I would always feel safe having Mark Wahlberg around and especially having Downey around. I mean, he's like a master in Wing Chun. So there's that. And they're also just lovely people. They're nice to be around.
You're nice to be around too, though. And it was so cool to see you bring Nathan Drake to life. I hope there's a lot more to come from that. But now that you've brought Nathan to life, is there any other video game character that you would want to team up with?
I mean, the natural one to say would be Lara Croft. You know, there is a synergy between the two characters and in the sort of adventures that they go on. I don't know who owns Lara Croft. I don't know what studio who makes that film, so I'm not sure how that will work. But Sony and Tom Rothman, being, you know, the incredible studio head that he is, he has made a deal with Disney with Spider-Man that has never been done before. So I'm sure he has all of the skills in his back pocket to make a deal if they wanted to do an Uncharted Lara Croft team up, which actually could be really fun. That would be a really cool idea for a film, but whether or not that is what it is, who knows?
That would be sick. And if it happens, you said it here first. I thought you were going to say maybe Chris Pratt, because he's going to be voicing Mario.
Really? Chris Pratt is going to voice Mario?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I didn't know that. That's awesome. I've been trying to keep off of social media for the last few months, so I've been a little bit living under a rock. So that's amazing. That's a cool little piece of casting.
Both you turn your keys clockwise at the same time.
Thanks a lot. You almost got me killed.
Clockwise, Sully.
Well, it was 50-50, so I made a guess.
Clearly.
Congratulations on Uncharted. It was so
Thank
cool
you.
seeing you and Tom share the screen together. And it made me want to ask you, have you seen Spider-Man No Way Home yet? And what'd you think of the movie and Tom as Spider-Man?
I haven't seen it yet, but I'm now learning about the multiverse.
Yeah.
Yes. I was wondering, and I started asking these questions. We were just on an interview together, and I'm like, how can you have the first Spider-Man, the second Spider-Man, and now the third one all in the same movie? But they explained it to me. I'm not completely convinced that it's okay, but I'm going to go and see it. My kids have seen it in the theater. But Tom is fantastic. I really enjoyed working with him. He's super talented, and you know, he's really finding a way to balance these kind of big, huge, successful tentpoles with doing really small, interesting, challenging, dramatic work. So he's doing it right.
Did you guys get a chance to talk about Spider-Man at all? And like, would you want to be in a sequel, or would you want to play a character in that?
In Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I think it would depend. I think, you know, I'm kind of getting older and trying to do different things and embracing that. So if I could play Uncle Ben or one of those parts, then maybe. But, you know, I'm kind of, I certainly couldn't walk out of my trailer in one of those outfits. I don't have the confidence.
Listen, I would love to see Mark Wahlberg as Uncle Ben, but let's talk about Uncharted now. You have this insane fight scene with Tati Gabrielle's Braddock. So I wanted to know, what was it like shooting that scene?
It was tough. I mean, Tati's she's badass. I mean, her martial arts skills, all that stuff are amazing. But her and I became fast friends before we even started making the film. So anytime we got to just play off of each other and just working together was always a big treat. She was probably, and I loved everybody else in the movie, but obviously I was closest to Tati. She's amazing.
Nice. Did you come out unscathed? Because that fight scene was insane.
I did pretty much. I mean, she was choking me. She was choking me out. She wrapped that thing around my neck a little too tight, but I didn't want to complain. I didn't want her to know that I was bothered by it. And, you know, you talk about a formidable opponent, both not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. She's wonderful.
Yeah, it was cool to see that. I mean, this film is just so action-packed aside from that fight scene. And I remember watching an interview you did, Mark, 2 weeks before you started filming Uncharted, where you were telling the interviewer when you read the script, you were just like, this feels like a real movie. So I was wondering, did you get to do anything in Uncharted that you hadn't done before in a movie?
Yeah, I mean, because I've done so much, I've probably done it all, but it was the first time that I just felt like I was in a big movie. Like this felt like Indiana Jones, where you're transported into a world and you're seeing something that you're just normally not privy to seeing. That's why it always just felt like that. You know, I've done these little intimate movies. I've done many different kinds of films, but this is the first big like action adventure blockbuster that takes you on this magical, mystical ride that is full of adventure and joy.
It really is. Like you're literally on the edge of your seat till the very last.
And right after I read, I literally watched every one of the Indiana Joneses, and then I watched, you know, Romancing the Stone and other movies that I felt like had some sort of similarities.
I also thought of Indiana Jones, but I thought it was interesting that this movie started out as a concept of wanting to make a movie about a younger James Bond. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to know, who would you cast as 007?
Idris Elba.
Why?
Idris. Because he's just the smoothest, coolest guy there is out there. Obviously, he's tall, good looking, all that stuff, but he's got the edge and everything else. And, you know, Daniel Craig has been fantastic, but that would be my first choice.
Yeah, that's my first choice too. I'm just like waiting for them to announce it. I'd be so excited.
Yeah.
Do you see this Uncharted film series as a trilogy? And like, have you guys talked about this being a sequel or there being?
We haven't. I'm not usually in the world of sequels. I've made a couple, but you know, I mean, I always think if the audience really wants it, that's the first thing, and then if we can make it better than the first, then it's worth exploring.
Yeah, well, I'm secretly hoping for that too as well.
Oh, well, thank you.
Love that you're rocking the stash. I'm sure a lot of people have been asking you about that today. We see the mustache in the trailer. Is this something that you'd also want to keep like for Sully and like?
For Sully, yeah, but this is also a tribute to my dad. My dad always rocked a mustache. I remember when I had the mustache for the movie, my siblings like, oh my God, you look so much like Dad. So kind of rocking it for that. And then maybe for another part coming up, but if not, I might shave it soon after the movie comes out.
Who the hell is this?
I'm a friend of Sully's.
Sully doesn't have any friends. I should know him. One of them.
Sophia, congratulations on Uncharted. I love Chloe Frazer in this film. I first wanted to ask you about that insane cargo plane crate stunt scene. What was it like shooting that?
Oh, it was awesome. It was so cool. I felt so badass and empowered, and yeah, it was cool.
What was like, can you tell me how long it took to sort of train for that stunt? And what was it like playing off Tom too? I'm curious. And what are your thoughts on his take on Nathan Drake?
It's different than I imagined it. He's layered and nuanced differently than his other characters, you know? The rehearsal process was like, it was so much and everything sort of blends together, because when we got there on the day, we would rehearse so much and then everything would be so different, you know? And that was sort of the plane. It was a lot of like fly by the edge of your seat kind of stuff. And, you know, I was doing things that I didn't know I could do and just hoping that I could do it.
Wow. What's something you did that you didn't know you could do?
Well, like anything, any action thing that I did. Yeah. Like I slid across the car. I like jumped into the car through the window. I fought someone and I shot guns.
I love it. Well, you executed it flawlessly. What I love about Chloe Frazer too is that she has her own video game. So have you thought of what you would like to see in a Chloe spinoff if that were to happen?
Yeah, I want to see like her roots, you know, I want to see her in India. I want to see her immersed in the culture, and she's a very interesting character, right? She's not like how you would imagine. Obviously, I doubt she really identifies culturally with that at all, you know? So to see her in that, how she adapts and changes and stuff, that'd be cool.
What do you love about Chloe as a character?
I mean, that's one thing. I feel like she's really adaptable. She's just smart. She knows herself and she knows most situations, and she's very, very sure of herself.
Oh, crap!
Congratulations on Uncharted. The first thing I wanted to ask you about was the insane fight scene that you have with Sully, Mark Wahlberg. I was talking to him earlier today and he was like, I was closest with Tati on set, and there was a moment where he was like choking me too hard. So tell me all the ins and outs.
I forgot about that. Oh God.
Wait, tell me about that.
So yeah, like it was, I mean, yeah, like I feel like both of us, like, yeah, Mark was like, became like my uncle on set. Like he really like mentored me through the whole shoot of this project. And that scene in particular, like, I feel like neither of us are cutting either any slack. Well, like he told me to go for it, you know? And then, so I remember like in between things, and he, after one of the takes, he was like, Jesus, kid, can you like, well, I was like, I'm so sorry. They told me to get into it, to look vicious, and it's hard to like look vicious and not like also have that tension in your body. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And like he gave me a hard time too, like that spin around. God, I feel like the man dead weighted me, and like I had to strong arm him all the way around. Oh man. But definitely good memories from that scene.
I love, you're just bringing it to life even more, because I remember watching it. I was like, OMG, this is intense. What was it like training for that? And how is training for a knife fight, I guess, different than training for, you know, other types of fights on screen?
Well, training, I mean, the training for it in general was pretty extensive, just as far as like the prep, more so of like getting like working with the trainer to like get beefed up and everything. And like with knife fighting is only difficult in the way of learning distance, especially with the karambit and it being this very particular sort of thing of knowing how close or far you need to be to, I guess, one, in real life, be able to hit someone, but two, on screen, be able to make it look real. And that, like, my work with the karambit, I did a lot of self-taught things. Like, I just watched videos, did research. The fighting, though, in general, came a lot easier to me because I have a background in martial arts, and so that was pretty smooth. Yeah.
You were so good as this character. How fun is it playing a villain? And did you use any other villains as inspiration?
It's awesome playing a villain. I mean, like, it's just like, when do you like get to just not care about anybody or anything? Yeah, it was also just like a fun challenge. Like, I'm so different than Braddock. Like, I'm actually quite sensitive and very like optimistic and bubbly. And so like I had to really strip away all of myself in order to truly be this villainous, unempathetic, psychopathic chick. Is it weird to say that well, I guess a combination of like Rafe and Nadine from the video games themselves was a big inspiration for me for Braddock. And then I actually took from Prudence, from my character from Sabrina, and sort of, I feel like infused a little bit of that into Braddock as well.
That's so sick. I love you and Sabrina. I love you and you too. How do you think Braddock would handle Joe Goldberg?
Oh, there would be like, it would not have gone on so long. Like, Joe would be gone by now. If he came up against Braddock, oh my God, have you seen her? She's psycho. Like, no, like he wouldn't have lasted this long.